All-Irelands, Henry Shefflin and Anthony Daly, and also a man who is unquestionably one of Waterford's greatest ever.
We've come a long way from where we were years ago, so we're up there with the best of them now, and every player wants to be judged on how you play in Championship.
Players waiting for it. Ken McGrath is one of them, and that's over the bar.
This road is growing on.
Ken McGrath. That's his fourth point. They always say if there was a transfer system in hurling, Ken McGrath would be worth a fortune.
It's Ken McGrath. This player has spearheaded Waterford's attack for several years, justifiably an award winner at last.
Maybe dawn a new day.
It's been tough, but it's been enjoyable as well.
Ken McGrath makes a fantastic catch. That could be a match winner in its own for the 14 men of Waterford. And that is it. Waterford have won the Munster Hurling Final for 2004.
It was a brilliant feeling. All my life I was hoping to have that, you know.
Yes, that is Ken McGrath, and this, of course, is Ken McGrath, and you're very welcome to the Sunday game. And it's, I suppose, like Henry a couple of months back, it's unusual to see you in a different setting here in Croker.
Yeah, it's strange. Look, some great memories on the video there. But look, it's great to be back up for a semi-final for this young team, and it's a privilege to be asked, and hopefully we'll enjoy it.
You were part, obviously, Ken, of a great Waterford team, and you won so much, but you went to that step and just couldn't quite get over the line. What about this side?
Yeah, I think they offer something different. I suppose I played in 8 semi-finals, won one. It's not a great record, but I suppose we broke the mould at times with that team, and we tried to play some flamboyant and exuberant hurling. This team is a bit more structured in how they play, but they're fearless young lads. Some of them have some great memories out there, and other minor a couple of years ago, underage. I think they're looking forward today, and there's a small bit of expectation for Waterford today, and we're all excited about it, you know.
Well, I suppose, Anthony, the cars that were coming up from Waterford and Kilkenny, and obviously they're all travelling the same route, there was some mob coming up. By the way, people are going to have to wait a little bit longer for this senior match, because the minor match between Kilkenny and Galway has just finished in a draw, so there's extra time in that now.
Yeah, Galway just got an equaliser there, Michael, just before we came on, I think, so fair play. They were in the contest all the way through, so fair play. You wonder why there isn't a replay for minors. The All-Ireland is a good bit off next Saturday or that, you know, so.
Yeah. Well, it is extra time, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. And just to remind you again, that means years we have seen a couple of battles between Kilkenny and Waterford. Kilkenny have come out the best out of them. I actually remember, in particular, 1998. I know you lads were too young for some of those games, but that was a great match. Yeah. And then subsequently, you know, you met again, Waterford met again in finals, and it was Kilkenny's day.
Yeah, I suppose 98 and 2004, Ken played with it. I think Waterford were very close, and probably if they got over the line, they could have went on to win the All-Ireland both years. And there were 2 games Kilkenny really struggled to get over. I think the other years after that, Kilkenny were probably on top. But I think those 2 matches specifically, Ken, I would imagine we got a couple of goals the second day. But as I said, this is a new team now. That team, all those finals, semi-finals, Ken played it. The nucleus of the team was probably the same. All of those players are gone. Brick Welch and Kevin Moore are probably the only 2 players now from the losing semi-final. So for the rest of them, it's totally new. It's a new area for themselves. They've won it already at minor level. So you would think that they'll bring this on to senior level as well.
The one thing that struck me going back to that 98 match, Anthony, was going down to the 2 counties. The hype that was in Waterford leading up to the game, the week leading up to the game, was just unreal. And I always felt on the day that had an effect on Waterford. What about this present side? Do you think they can cope better with a day like today?
Yeah, I suppose 2008, Michael, would remind us more of the hype maybe than 98. You know, I mean, they were very close in 98 and really, really performed. But 2008, I suppose the hype did get, and the first final, I suppose, for many's a long day. And but this crowd seemed like they've won an All-Ireland minor. They have a great record at colleges level between De La Salle, Blackwater colleges, the combined Dungarvan colleges did really well, all strong Harty Cup contenders every year now, and underage structures in Waterford have been very strong for a while, and I think these guys are coming here today with very little fear and a great freedom in it. Now, there's a little bit of a danger in freedom as well, in that you can say it's a free day. It's a free day, but if you lose, you're out. Sure. That's the end of your year, and next year's another year, and everyone starts from scratch. So for that, I think they really have to be careful of that and say, look, really, this is an opportunity, and we've got to try and grasp that opportunity.
I suppose, Ken, one of the things that would impress most people about this present Waterford side was that the team of, let's say, your era, the Tony Browns, the Paul Flynn, etc., so forth, when that began to disintegrate, everybody thought Waterford are gone now for a while, and that has turned out, as Anthony said, not to be the case.
Yeah, look, I suppose if you're going back on probably past games with Kilkenny, bar the 08 final, we've been very close and always been fairly competitive against them. We thought we were probably in a small bit of transition. We were probably for a year or two, but we didn't slip off the radar fully. We, suppose, as Anthony said, the structures are in place underage, some development squads for the last 10, 15 years. We're getting the potential from them players then, and we're building on that. And I think this year we probably exceeded where we thought we could be. I think maybe we're a year ahead, maybe where I thought we might be. Sure. But you have to take your chances when they come, and Clare won Ireland 2 years ago with a young team coming through, and it's the start of this emerging young team, but you mightn't get a chance again for a few years with other teams popping up, so you have to take it.
I suppose in actual fact, Henry, you could say the same thing about Kilkenny, and we're inclined to think of Kilkenny in a different category. But again, like, we looked at the players like yourself, obviously, and some of the lads in the last year or two who have retired off the panel. Like, if this was professional sport, other counties would be going out, snapping them up and buying them.
Yeah, I would think so. And all you have to do is look at Kilkenny's match programme sheet today, because there's a lot of names that are probably, for the viewers, are probably not used to seeing. So Kilkenny has had massive transition as well last year, and we would have said that at the start of the year, but obviously they've performed very well in the first two matches to date, so everyone thinks it's just back to Kilkenny of norm. And I suppose this is where the real test is. Like, there was always the back door in the other previous two matches. This is it now. And I said they are facing an emerging Waterford team, energy, young, and that's always been a challenge for Kilkenny over the years. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. And as well as that, they've had the injuries in the lead up to the match as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they overcome all that.
The only thing with that, Michael, is though, whereas you have a Shane Bennett and a Patrick Curran straight out of Leicester's minor team. You have a Jerry Aylward who's 24. Is he 24, 23, 24?
Yeah.
Just coming in now, like, well seasoned and has waited for this chance, whereas other counties seem to be forced to shove the lads forward a bit without any choice, where Brian seems to be able to leave them a bit longer. I only think he ever played two guys straight out of minor, did he?
Yeah,
Chad, JJ.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing stat that other counties really do have to push their real star men. You came straight out of minor, I think.
I suppose, we'd all love being in a position like Kilkenny, the whole lads back for 22, 23, they're more mature, they develop physically, but unfortunately we're not. And look, sometimes young lads, especially this group of Waterford, they've no fear. Sure. We saw Shane Bennett the last day, great goal off the ground, and they offer something slightly different. And as Henry said, it could be something to shake up this Kilkenny team a bit. I
suppose the saying goes, if you're good enough, you're old enough. All right, well, it's time now, in fact, to hear from one of Kilkenny's most powerful defenders, and that is Paul Murphy. He is an All-Ireland winner, of course, an All-Star as well, and a man that's already enjoyed success this year with another Leinster Championship medal.
It's Kilkenny, Leinster champion.
Waterford as well, who played for so many years without him. So look, I'm delighted I have three. But there's lads who are retired from us that have 9 and 10. So 3 to us now. Like, I've been seeing lads work for years to get 8, 9, 10 All-Irelands. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I'm going to work as hard as I can to get there. If I finish with 3, I'll
out each other. Maybe that's why we're not
surrounded by fellas with 9 and 10 of them.
We love one. I know it's hard to answer that one. I suppose that's just the mentality, and it's a winning mentality, I think. And Paul has come in. He's won 3 All-Irelands in the first 4 years. He's won 4 All-Stars. He's now a leader in the team. You look at the full back line today, no Jackie Tyrrell, no JJ Delaney, but Paul Murphy is there. And he's really earned that crust. And he's a very, from marking him even in training, he's an explosive player. He's built very strongly. He works out, he's in the army, so it gives him an opportunity then to develop himself. And he's just a very explosive player. Big player for Kilkenny today. Obviously, if Waterford player back, he'll more than likely step into the role in front of the two experienced full back line. And he'll have a big part to play then. Pádraig Maher played a big part in the Munster final for Tipperary, and Paul Murphy, if he's doing that role, will have a big part to play in today's game as well. But massive player for Kilkenny, and a big leader for Kilkenny now.
Yeah, he is. And I suppose, Anthony, there's a kind of a sort of a loose perception of Kilkenny that they rely on the talent in the squad, send the lads out in the day and hope that everything's going to work out all right. But it's a bit more complicated than that, obviously.
Yeah, I think so, Michael. I think Brian has really adapted over the years as well. That was the way when everyone was playing 15-a-side, and I had a bit of a go way back in 2004 with playing Adam Markham back as a sweeper, and it caused a few problems. But they've come to terms really with the game, the way it has changed, and they're quite happy to draw you into the battle zone, and there's no better team in the battle zone. And I referred a bit earlier that they're a bit more seasoned, a bit older. We see last year's replay here. Early on, Tip did a bit of scoring, but I would say Kilkenny were laying down the markers. And a fella like Converted, who I thought was a washed-up cornerback, I tell you the truth, at the end of 2013, Conor Fogarty. Midfielder possibly of the year last year, Mr. Consistency, and has carried it forward to this year. And he's in every ruck. And Joyce, back for the replay last year, we've seen 3 times involved in the same incident here. Mick Fenley eventually gets it away. On to this year's Leinster final. You see here again, there's nobody really up front here, but Fenley not having a great game, but absolutely fights for that ball, but knows there's no one forward, sees Walter across the field. You can see there's nobody up front. But, you know, the score comes off it, and like they just... If Waterford engage with them in that middle third, which has been their game plan, they're going to find it very hard to break them down.
And I suppose these are the challenges, Ken, that if you're going to win All-Ireland and come through days like today, that you have to have all these things figured out, because it was interesting, like with Waterford, you know, had such a good year, got to the Munster final, and then on the day just didn't find that other little bit that you need.
Well, look, to beat the top teams, you're talking about like Galway, Kilkenny, Tip, you have to come up to a different level again. As Anthony said, every team is doing tactics. It's not just strictly 15 on 15 anymore. Kilkenny would naturally, the wing forwards would always drift back anyway and create the space for a full forward line. But the work rate is unbelievable. We saw that from a couple of clips. You never get easy off Kilkenny, lads. You'll never get a free shot out of your own defence, and that's what creates the problems for our teams. But look, that's something similar to what Waterford are playing as well, and it's a matter of who does it properly and does it right on the pitch today. Both tactically will be something similar, I think, today, you know.
Now, Henry, that you've stepped back from the scenario a little bit, tell me this. Did you guys ever doubt yourselves the day of a big match like today? Did you ever think to yourself, I'm not sure if we're right for this one?
No, to be honest.
No, I didn't think so. I don't know why I asked.
I know, and I suppose that is history, that's tradition, that's Kilkenny, that's Tipperary, and that's the challenge for anyone like Anthony and Ken trying to make the breakthrough. It's so hard for the underdogs to do it. And like we hear a lot about this week, and the Waterford players saying we've no fear, these lads have won minor All-Irelands, better Kilkenny. But that's minor, that's under 21, and it is a different step up. You know, and I'm sure Kilkenny will be down there in the dressing room saying, we are Kilkenny. Now, they won't be saying that,
I know,
but like, that's the kind of mentality. We're going out to play our game. We're the champions. We want to show it. People are doubting us. People are saying, Waterford are going to take our title off us. We're not going to lay that. And I think you have to have that confidence. I think everyone, Waterford will be the same, but Kilkenny have that in spades, and I suppose they have the records to really improve that, you know.
There's no doubt about that. All right, it's time for us to take a short break. When we return, we'll be turning our attention to Waterford and hearing from Kevin Moran as we continue our big match build-up to today.
Number of years, but it's, you know, it's a new team, it's a new panel, and you know a lot of people can see the changes that I've made, and to get a national title and beating Cork in the league final, I think was huge for the progression and the confidence of the whole entire panel and the management. We've put a huge amount of focus on, you know, fitness and things like that, and it's worked out for us. And I suppose getting some victories in the league, you know, really propelled us for the year, and it's just kind of gathered momentum really since then. We're just focusing on game to game really.
Now Waterford ready to take a grip on this game. Tig the Burka lands it over the bar.
Tig and Austin and Colin, they're their own guys. They come from all different walks of life, but once they come into that dressing room, the one thing that stick out for me is the skill levels they have is, you know, something to behold. You know, they're, you know, very down-to-earth fellas in fairness, but the skill levels that they have is, you know, is very, very clear from, you know, from pucking around with them and things like that. So that's one thing that would hugely stick out for me.
Good work here by Shane Burke, and that is a brilliant point to guarantee Tipperary's 41st Munster title.
I think the game was a lot closer maybe than the 5 points or 6 points winning margin the Tip had. We made, you know, some errors that were unlike us, hit some silly wides and things like that. So from that point of view, I think, again, we didn't lose any confidence in the fact that, you know, we can compete at this level.
Good work by Maurice Shannon. Oh, that's a great ball. Comes Ferris. Bennett. Oh, magnificent goal. and Waterford, the Allianz League champions, are back in the All-Ireland semi-final.
I think the second half performance really, again, showed the worth of this team. It was, it was a pressure environment at half time. We realised we were a point down and it was all or nothing. And to get a very good second half performance again, just, was really, I suppose it was satisfactory from everyone's point of view, from the amount of work that was put into reach an All-Ireland semi-final.
DJ Reid, goal! Kilkenny are Leinster champions again for the 70th time.
I think this team needs a challenge like that to go into the Lions Den and to take on, the best team in the country. Look, it's a great place to be. As I said, it's a great place for this young team to get to Croke Park in All-Ireland semi-final and to, we're under no illusions what's ahead of us. They're a formidable team, as the records show. So we'd be absolutely foolish not to respect the quality of every single player that puts on a Kilkenny shirt. So it doesn't have to go into too much detail about these guys will hurt you if you're not up to scratch, or if you give them space, or if you can goal opportunities. So from that point of view, it's just about, let's try and do what's good for us. Let's go out and give this a really good go.
Yeah, Kevin has a big day ahead of him today and a big challenge ahead of him. But you were saying to me, Ken, just while we were watching that clip, you were impressed with this man. You played with him, of course.
Yeah, I played him for a few years. He's 2 Munster medals and 2 leagues. He's a natural leader. I suppose he took that mantle on himself there the last couple of years and tried to get young lads through with the experience he has. And every game he leaves everything on the pitch. We saw it a couple of years ago in Kilkenny. He actually left everything on the pitch. But that's Kevin. He's a great bit of stuff. And we need him going today now, because if he's up against Michael Fennelly, that's going to be a fair battle, And 2 big men and 2 lads that won't take a step back. And that's what you want. And that's what we might kind of see that today, and might get a bit of a burst for the championship,
Well, every team needs that, Anthony. When you come to a particular era and you have a chance, you need these lads stepping forward.
Yeah, we often hear Gerard Nan here on a Sunday talking about on-field leaders, and I think, Kevin Moran epitomises that. He's a colossus for Waterford. For me, he's everywhere. Plays forward, still gets his few scores. Yes, you'll find him in the right half-back position, right corner-back, left half-back. Dublin pushed up on him. They let Shane Barrett up with him and he did a fair old job in the first half, and he's a young player just out of minor. But eventually Kevin's experience got the better of the equation, and he was a big influence.
They're not going to score from inside their own half. What was your read?
Yeah, look, I think we learned an awful lot from the Munster final. The Waterford team did. They tweaked it a small bit for the Dublin game. They pushed more forward, put Austin Gleeson up the forward line. Darragh Fives, who was plagued with injuries the last couple of years, slotted in right half back and played well. Against the top teams, you'll only get, if you're playing that system, you only get your 14, 15, 16 points, what we got.
Yeah.
But that's not going to win the game for you. You have to develop on it more and push forward more. And we've done that. Look, the acid test is today. This is the acid test for this Waterford team and for Derek, Dan and the lads. And we'll know more in 35 minutes how it's working,
We're always very wise after the match. That's something you learn on this program, I can tell you. It's time now to head outside Croke Park and see who Joanne Cantwell's caught up with ahead of today's big game.
Here on a busy Jones's Road, we're with a man who knows.
Indeed, Joanne, and for this first championship meeting of these neighbouring counties in 2 years, All-Ireland champions Kilkenny start with goalkeeper Owen Murphy playing in his second semi-final. He was 25 on Thursday last. Cornerback Paul Murphy, 27 yesterday, is joined in that full back line by team captain Joey Holden and another relative newcomer, Shane Prendergast, in for the injured Jackie Tyrrell. Pádraig Walsh is another facing Waterford for the first time in the championship, in the company today of Kieran Joyce and Killian Buckley at left half. Michael Fennelly once again lines up in midfield, and he's there with Conor Fogarty. This was the partnership Kilkenny used, of course, against Wexford. In the half forwards, Walter Welch has returned to form, and partners Richie Hogan, last year's hurler of the year, with TJ Reid, a candidate for this year's award, on the left-hand side. Ger Aylward is the team's top goal scorer this year, while Conor Fennelly at full forward and Owen Larkin in the corner share 14 goals so far, with Larkin today playing in his 52nd championship match. Waterford Stephen O'Keefe played in the 2013 All-Ireland semi-final meeting of these teams and was beaten just once that day. Shane Fives is part of a very consistent full back line, with Barry Coughlin in his first year playing at number 3 alongside Noel Connors, happily recovered from a dead leg sustained in Thurles.
Tadhg de Búrca will almost certainly play as sweeper, with Austin Gleeson controlling the centre and Philip Mahoney playing in his usual role at left half. Jamie Barrell will line up in the middle of the field alongside Dara Fives, who'll do a specific man-marking job, one assumes. Captain Kevin Moran will revert to midfield, with the youthful Shane Bennett foraging at half-forward and Jake Dillon seeking to dominate his patch on the left-hand side. Maurice Shanahan has been Waterford's top scorer this summer, and while Michael Welch faces the Cats for the 6th time in the Championship, it's a new experience for Colin Dunford. Well, so much speculation about how this game will go. Can Derek McGrath and his squad inflict a first All-Ireland semi-final loss on Brian Cody and Kilkenny for 10 years? Of course, it's 2005 since they last lost at this stage, and then to Galway. Let's hear from the two managers.
Were there big worries over Richie Hogan?
Richie picked up a slight knock last weekend, but he's been fine for the past few days, and Richie will be playing.
How big a loss is Jackie going to be today?
Well, Jackie is a player of tremendous experience for us, you know, and we'd like to have him out there, but we don't, so we just got to carry on, same as if we had him.
We're used to assuming that Kilkenny go out and they play their own game regardless. Does that alter today, given the way that Waterford have played this year?
Well, we have no idea what Waterford are going to do today, you know, so we'll go out and play the game, play our game, and if we have to react and adapt as the game goes on, so be it. But look, we'd expect, we're just playing a very, very good team, so we'll go out and play the game.
Are you thinking there may be a few surprises from that camp today?
No idea, Joanne, to be honest. You know, we have no idea what's happening down in Waterford, but we can only control ourselves.
I've heard lots of people refer to the young lads. They don't have the same hang-ups when it comes up against Kilkenny. Is that actually true, do you think?
Well, I think retrospectively, if we're beaten, people will say that they weren't able to live with the actual place and the atmosphere, etc. So, look, I think you can only analyse that when in the face of a defeat or a victory, if you like. So, we're just hopeful. Obviously, when you're young, you don't carry the burden of worry in terms of your whole approach to it. So that's what we're hoping it'll translate itself onto the field, you know.
I know before the last game you spoke about the subtleties of the changes you do make in the way you line out. Are there many of those changes and subtleties required today facing this opposition?
Listen, there's far more qualified people than me that have come up with plans or subtle changes against Brian Cody's team and have come out the wrong end of it. So our game plan is basically to work as hard as we ever have possibly done in our lives, and if we do that, we have a chance. If we don't, we'll be blown away.
Are you going to surprise people with the way you line out today?
No, I don't think there's any surprises. We'll just work hard for each other, and that's our basic maximum, and we hope to bring that to the game today, you know.
That is, of course, the view from the managers. Joanne was trying to tease out of Derek how he was going to set up for this game today.
Yeah,
you're going to tell us.
No, look, he knows as much as me. I suppose programmes don't mean an awful lot nowadays, you know. But look, I'd say we'll stick to what's worked for us most year. We lost one game all year, but he's done a great job all year. He came in, he changed things last year, maybe learned on the job last year as such. But this year's been great to get a 1B, win a league, lose a Munster final, but compete.
Yeah.
Now we have a chance against, look, Kilkenny would be our neighbours, but we look up to Kilkenny. They're the benchmark for every team for the last 20 years. He's up against the best manager of all time, so we've nothing to lose today but have a right cut. And I think they will, you know.
We know so much, of course, about Brian Cody, Henry. Will Brian be happy with the way Kilkenny have been going this year, do you think?
I think he'd be very happy. Obviously, during the league, the Ballyhale lads weren't playing. There's a few injuries, so Kilkenny were in the relegation final against Clare. But since then, they've been absolutely... The two matches they've played, you know, people were questioning leading up to the Wexford match, and they were magnificent on the day, to be honest. They were very hungry, very sharp. And against Galway, I think people don't give credit to Galway for the first 40 minutes. They really put it up to us. But the lads just soaked it up and gave it back to him and went forward then, and TJ and Richie took over the game. And like, they'd have to be very, very happy to be in this position now. They've played well on both days, and obviously it's great even to see Brian there. You know, there's injuries this week, there's been lots of people, etc., but there's not one murmur about that. It's just today is the aim and looking forward to that. I think that's the manager he is, you know.
By the way, the minor match was just finished here at Croke Park, and it's finished Galway 220, Kilkenny 26 points. Henry, after all that?
Yeah, I know, it was touch and go. We were just watching a bit over our shoulder, so it's obviously it was a great game for the neutral and for anyone watching there today, I think. So, no, it's obviously a good result for both teams, I think.
Yeah, and just to remind anybody who's joined us a little bit late here on the programme, the senior game is deferred now by 15 minutes because of the minor match going to extra time, Anthony. Would that make any difference to players who are expecting to be running out on the field at a particular time with a routine, and then suddenly they're told, no, stay where you are?
Some lads, it wouldn't bother them at all, Michael, but some lads are absolutely
throw
them off kilt completely. Like, I know some of the lads I've dealt with as a player, teammates, and as a manager, be it Clare or Dublin.
Yeah.
God, they'd be just so ready to go, and then someone would come in and say the minor match is a draw, lads. Gone to try. Oh God, what am I going to do for the next 25 minutes? Look, it's the guy I think who can keep his head there. He has his focus. He's focused all day. He's the guy that won't bother at all, and he'll come out, take it in his stride. It's just part and parcel the whole day. Little glitch, bus delayed, maybe going to a league game. That upsets some fellas. Other fellas, everything's in the stride. It's out of my control. I just control what I can control, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it. And I think possibly it might even help Kilkenny again if there's another little bit of an advantage to be tweaked out of it. It won't bother them, you know.
Well, I suppose that's a good point, Henry. You know, when you're the challenger, when you're the, for want of a better expression, the underdog in it, you know, it's going to put maybe more pressure on Waterford than it is on Kilkenny, and that's to be understood.
Yeah, the lads are experienced. I think last year's semi-final was a draw as well, so we were a little bit delayed inside. And I think Anthony's point is valid, though. I think if you're focused and you're happy with yourself in the lead up to the game, it's not going to knock too much of a kilt out of you, and you're going to just be, oh yeah, that's 15 minutes, so I'll go in and puck around and I'll just delay things a little bit. And the management team, Mick Dempsey would be in for Kilkenny saying, right, our warm-up was pushed back 10 minutes, and that's the way they kind of work it, and tells you what time you're coming out of it. So I suppose all that is pushed back, and you know, but again, I think you have the warm-up areas. It's great inside in Croke Park in the sense that you're able to go in and belt a few balls around the place, and that's what you want to be doing anyway, you know.
Fantastic.
Well, there, Ken, Waterford coming out onto the field for this All-Ireland semi-final, and obviously there's great excitement down your neck of the woods at the moment now.
Yeah, it's good, I suppose. Look, I'm from the city, so Kilkenny would be our rivals, and West Waterford would be Cork, and parts of Waterford would be Tip, but it's always been Kilkenny. And look, unfortunately, as we saw the clip before that, we've been the bridesmaids so much, and but look, we're trying to learn from Kilkenny and see what they're doing, and we've done things right over the years, and hopefully, as we said, this young team could be the start of, as we saw, a new empire.
They've been winning so much down there, Ken. They must be learning something at this stage.
No, exactly. Look, if we don't start learning now, I think we'll have to give up, you know. But no, look, they're the benchmark for all of us. And we take so much from them. But look, we're our own people, and we're proud people, and we play a nice style of hurling and what suits us, and we're tweaking our little game plan at times, and if we do, when we keep developing that and push forward, we'll be thereabouts, I think, you know.
All right. Well, we will be getting the views further and final predictions indeed from the panel right after this break.
Teams will set up, especially Waterford, I suppose. We saw definite signs of a tweak in the Dublin game compared to the Munster final. Ozzie Gleeson was allowed a little bit more latitude to get forward, obviously operating from midfield and get up. And he's explosive getting up the field, and I think if he's allowed that, he can add a couple of scores. You know, he'll score from play, he might be fouled for a couple of balls, that general area. But I think it'll boil down to a lot of, there'll be dog ball around the middle. I call it dog ball.
Yeah.
That dirty ball. Who's going to come up with it? And if Waterford can come up with their fair share of that, they'll have a fair chance.
But with respect to Dublin, I guess it's easier to tweak the way you're playing against Dublin than it is against maybe a Kilkenny.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, Derek will be very aware that 16 points won't beat Kilkenny today, and that's the bottom line. It just won't get you over the line against Kilkenny. You'll need to be hitting the 118 mark, possibly, and hope then that your system would tie down Kilkenny, maybe no goals, that Tadhg de Burka would have the game of his life as sweeper. He has been superb, to be fair to him, all year as sweeper, and they'd be looking for a huge day off him again. For a young Clare, under 21 still, to be delivering the way he is, I think he has some future, and great learning day for them. It could be a great day outside of learning as well.
Henry Shefflin, you've sat in that Croke Park dressing room many, many times on occasions like this. Just as you're going out on the field and you've done all your preparations, what are the final few words that Brian Cody is saying to fellas? Just a last reminder.
Well, I think it's just about basically just getting yourself involved in the game, not standing or staying away from the play. Just get yourself into the game. And I think me as a forward, or any of the forwards down there, if there's going to be 7 Waterford backs, I think the big thing for the forwards today will be work rate. And I know we were just talking about it off camera, about winning your own ball. You know, working very hard, getting yourself into play, putting Waterford under pressure, delivering that ball. And I think if Kilkenny can do that, which I think they have the forwards to do, because the ball winning ability of those forwards is top notch. And I think if you can win that primary ball, it cuts out Tadhg de Burka, cuts out the sweeper system, get it in your hand and move it on. I think I'm sure Brian will be instilling that in the forwards, that we need a big game from those forwards to work very hard. And man, I'm looking forward to my own colleague, Colin Fenley, who probably hasn't lit up the championship yet, but has so much potential, so much speed. And the block he did last year in the All-Ireland semi-final was magnificent, but he can bring that. And if you have that turning over ball and taking the ball off Tadhg de Burke or Noel Connors or something like that, Colin Fenley can do that. I think that lifts the rest of the defenders, and it just lifts everyone else to drive it on with him, you know.
Ken, look, you know what's coming at you in this game. That's not going to be a surprise to Waterford. But how do you cope with that? How do you cope with Kilkenny on a day like today?
You're asking the wrong person here, Mike. But, we did not cope too well with it. But no, they have to stick to what worked from so far this year. As Anthony said, the dirty ball, that's what Kilkenny are brilliant at winning, primary possession. And that cuts out the sweeper, as Henry said. But for Waterford, playing a sweeper, you'd be very careful with the likes of Richie Hogan. Richie don't need space. So I think you'd have to drop a midfielder back onto Richie if you're playing that sweeper. He's the best, he's hurler here from last year, the best players in the country. TJ Reid inside as well. You have to block that area is going in, but that frees up an extra probably back to Kilkenny, who can pinpoint the passes and pick these lads out. So it's look, hurling's gone a game of chess at this stage.
Yeah.
The gone is the traditional way of playing 15 on 15. You know you're marking. A lot of these lads won't even know who they're marking until the first 5 minutes. You know, but I think we have to stick to what worked for us so far and just trust in and believe in themselves and believe in their ability. That look, this could be the coming of this team, and who knows, you know.
Is there one man that you would look at in the Waterford team and say, if he plays well, we have a great chance?
Well, Morris early on, but Austin Gleeson, he's my own club mate as well.
Austin's a great
he's
stuff,
something different. I suppose we always like something a small bit different in Waterford, and he offers that. He can get scores from play, he can catch his own ball, win his own ball. He lifts the crowd as well when he does something that's inspirational as such, and he could lift the Waterford people, lift the team as well. If he cuts through the middle, as Anthony said, and opens Kilkenny up, we might see that's an avenue for more scores or whatever. I think he's a massive part of playing the game today, you know.
Well, whether it's Austin Gleeson or Morris Shanahan, there are two men that obviously Waterford will be looking for big games.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to see what way. Seamus Callan was the top player in the country leading up to the Munster final, and because Tadhg de Burke sat in front of him, what happened was that when the tip lads got the ball, the defenders back, they were looking up, but Tadhg de Burke was sitting in front of Seamus Callan. So we saw that day Seamus was making moves, but there was Waterford players all around, so he wasn't involved in the game. And I think for Kilkenny, one of the main players this year has been TJ Reid. And if that happens again and they're looking up and they can't get TJ in the game, but I would think if that is happening, what you'll see is that TJ will go out in the wing, start winning puck-outs, because we need TJ Reid, Richie Hogan very much involved in the game, and I think they'll learn their lesson from that Munster final, hopefully.
One of the things we've found down through the years with Kilkenny, Anthony, is if a fella's having a kind of a quiet day, you can always rely on somebody else to step forward and take it on his shoulders. From a Waterford point of view, Anthony, where are the scores going to come from?
Well, sure, look, the last day in the previous